All right, everyone. As I bask in the light of my Revan Bastila candle that Jenny from Jenny Marie Studios made for me, I'm excited to kind of introduce this episode to you because we are talking with Emrys from Girls With Sabers. Today it's just going to be Girl With Sabers, but do you want to introduce yourself, Emrys?
Yeah, my name is Emrys, and I am a girl with a saber. Normally there's two of us. My co-host is Luthien, and unfortunately she cannot be here tonight, so it's just me. But Lou and I run a YouTube channel called Girls With Sabers, and there we do pop analysis, exploring literature, art, film, music. We meant to be more general, but what happened in 2018 is The Last Jedi, and we decided all we could think of was Star Wars. So Girls with Sabers became predominantly a Star Wars channel, but we do cover more things, more mythos and mythology. So we love our Star Wars, but we also love a lot of other mythos, like King Arthur. We love Tolkien. We talk about them. We talk about Gothic romance, Jane Austen, Jane Eyre, all of those good things. We do video essays as well as podcasts and video edits. So I don't know what came out of my mouth, but it wasn't video edits.
Well, you didn't say striked out, so I think you're doing really well. So
Thank you.
So, for the people at home, I may have said that earlier, and I'm like, yeah, I dedicated my life to English, but I still said that, so, yeah.
Oh, I understand. I dedicated myself to English as well. That's what I have my degree in, is English education with a minor in mass communications.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yeah, grammar, making grammatical errors hurts my soul, but I do it all the time. Just carry the weight of such transgressions.
That's your burden to bear.
Yes, it's my ring.
Yeah. But I mean, editing exists, so like I'm always kind of like, oh, you can edit it later, so.
Except on Twitter. That is my one main issue with Twitter. Well, I have many issues with Twitter, but one is you cannot edit. And so those typos are there permanently, and it hurts me.
That's right. You have to catch it before you get like a like or a retweet, because then you can delete it. But as soon as you get like a like, then you're weighing it in your head whether it's worth deleting the tweet or not. So.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, technically, I think we have a Twitter, but I'm never going to check because I hate Twitter. So, yeah.
Having the Twitter is my burden to bear, I guess. So.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
yes.
We plugged our Twitter, so you can't say we didn't,
No, that's right. At Old Republic Podcast. Go check us out on Twitter. It's great.
I won't see it,
It is a double-edged sword to own a Twitter, but we stay there for the good people that are there.
Yeah.
There are good people. You just have to have to kind of be in your safe community bubble.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of more on the Instagram side of things, so yeah. I mean, social media has its pros and cons.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll plug all of our socials later, but so I was there for when you were actually watching Jane Eyre, and like it's been a while since I've seen that movie, and like I just think it's cool that you've kind of found a fun community where you kind of like examine like these kind of timeless themes of like love, romance, and like all that kind of through like Pride and Prejudice, Jane Eyre, and all that. So what kind of events do you kind of like put on sometimes?
We do movie watch-alongs where we do commentary and discuss more of the imagery, the monomyth, the archetypes, and things of that nature that you see in films, and go into the deeper analysis. Sometimes we contrast that with a book We discuss when it could be autobiographical, because a lot of artists or writers, especially in the Victorian era, put a lot of their desires in fiction because they couldn't speak them out or explore them in public. So there was a lot of psychoanalysis hidden within the novels. So we do that on our channel. We do a lot of live streams and just try to just lay back and discuss the what could be's and the ifs of Star Wars rumors and new books that come out. We analyze that. We try to just, at the end of the day, Lou and I met on YouTube. We met in a comment regarding Reylo, and we found out that we had a whole bunch of things in common. We both love The Lord of the Rings. We both love music and art and film history and literature. And we had so much fun talking about it just in a private message that we thought, oh, we would just like to talk to other people about it too, and kind of have a community. And so at the end of the day, that's what we hope our channel is like, is yes, we talk about these things, we analyze, but at the end of the day, we're just two fangirls, like two friends who just want to share what we love and discuss why we love it. And with other people, just because to me, that's the part of the fun of the fandoms or stories in general, is because they were meant to be communal experiences. So it's hard just to speak in a bubble.
Sure.
Like we just thought it was and I love it. I love that I've made friends, and I really do consider our community friends. I talk to them on a regular basis. We're very open on our social media platform because this community is very important to us. And it's just that shared excitement, especially during COVID. It was just an outlet to be, an outlet to experience that community again. And I love the community that we built. We try to be very positive. Luthien loves to block people.
Okay.
Not to be mean about it, but she's just very much of like, she wants to protect this to be a safe place. So if any bullies or trolls come in, not people of different opinions, of course we want to keep the discussion open. But if there's someone that's coming in that just wants to stir up drama, she blocks them in a heartbeat, just because she wants this place to be a safe place just to enjoy these stories.
I mean, sometimes I have to delete comments, block people, restrict people. I can understand that. Like, I'm always down to have a discussion, but sometimes like people just don't come in with an open mindset, and it's kind of just more to be like,
exactly. And I should have said love. I think it's I'm from the South, and so sometimes we speak in hyperbole. So just take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, she doesn't love it, but I guess she has no problems with blocking the trolls, where I'm afraid because I'm going to hurt their feelings.
I'm probably in the same boat, with Luthien. So, maybe a little bit like, kind of like I'm okay to do that, because like sometimes you just have to kind of protect your little community. And like, I understand that, like, kind of just like during COVID, pandemic, whatever you want to call it, I can understand, like, a lot of stuff went on hold, and, like, the podcast kind of became, like, my social network when a lot of things were closed down. And, like, people have, like, commented, like, like, all over the world, like, in Australia, Bosnia, like, all over, and they say, oh, I love your podcast, it's really helped me get through this time. And, like, for me, like, comments like those are priceless. So
They really
Yeah.
are. Like, I love that we have friends from China, from Russia, from Italy, from England, from all over the area, the world. And it's the great part of the social media. And that's why we stay on it. Although it's a double-edged sword, we're still there for the people that make it better.
But I've been so impressed with your kind of like your podcast, what all the different things you do, the watch-alongs, the video essays, the videos, and I just love like your analysis. Like you also cover like Star Wars news, but like I always love it when people kind of like look into like the historical and like kind of like literary traditions and things, like probably because I was an English major too, and I'm like, oh, this is so fascinating, I love it, and you've carved out a positive fandom that I don't think like gets a lot of love sometimes, and it's just kind of nice to like kind of see things like I guess from more of like maybe like a feminine perspective, a different perspective, than we see a lot. And you guys are just so passionate and love what you love, which I love, so.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is all labor of love. Like, it really is. And I think podcasters know the work behind the scenes. And it's exactly what you said. We do this because we love it. We love the subject matter, and we love talking to people about these things. So yeah, I mean, my degree is English education, and that included literary analysis, but it's also something that I just do. Like, I write essays after I see a movie or or read a book, just because I have to get it out of my system of things that I saw and that were meaningful to me. That's why I do it. It's not necessarily I'm going to get graded or going to publish that essay. It's more of that's how I distill meaning from media that I consume. Like, I'm a person that I'm always analyzing something, and to me, it makes a movie or a book or music more meaningful to look at it from various perspectives, especially applying archetypes and looking at it through the monomyth lens, or and the female point of view, I do feel like is something that Star Wars needs more of. Like, I really do see just the value that the female fans do bring to the community. Like, we also have met some fabulous female podcasters that we've collaborated with, as well as, and I don't want to belittle the guys that we collaborate with, because we've met some just brilliant fans, no matter what the gender is. But it's nice to hear the voices that don't get as much attention, if that makes sense. Like, I really do feel like I really do wish that more Star Wars fans would explore more of the feminine point of view of storytelling and the female voices. Since we're going to talk about Reylo, that is one thing that I wish people who are anti-Reylo or not knowledgeable of Reylo would seek out, is the more academic perspective. Like, I love romance. I love love. but at the same time, I'm an academic person, and I see Reylo not just because I love the chemistry between Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley. They're the dyad. They just have fused into one. But also because of the rich mythology and references and motifs that Reylo uses, that's one thing that I wish more people, more fans would just explore, because Reylo is more than just a ship. It has so much depth and meaning that we started our channel shortly after The Last Jedi in 2018, and we're still talking about Reylo.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would just like, if you're anti-Reylo, or if Reylo is just something that you think of people writing fan fiction about, and I don't want to lessen those things, everyone needs to enjoy the way that they enjoy fandom. But I would encourage you just to listen to more analysis about Reylo if you're skeptical of it, because if it is applied the way that many Reylo theorists want to apply it, it can heal the Skywalker saga. And
Yeah.
that's what we want. We want to heal the myth of this family that introduced us to this galaxy.
Yeah. Great thought. I wholeheartedly agree. One thing I hope like is kind of implemented in the future, I linked it in the chat because I love books so much, is The Heroine with the 1001 Faces. It's
Yes.
by Maria Tatar, or maybe it's Tatar. Yeah, and it's kind of like looking at stories that were overlooked, and like I like The Hero of 1,000 Faces. Maybe like I like it a little too sanctimoniously, but like this book kind of like got me to really think a lot of things through, and like like for me maybe this is, I still love Campbellian thought, you know, like Vogler as well, you know, but I'm like, this is a good thing to add, I think, to kind of like, I don't know, what would it be called, the mythological storytelling canon, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well, it's a way to explore the lens. Like it's not necessarily the template. When I say template, I'm not necessarily meaning a drawing. It can be a drawing, because a drawing helps us go through the steps that a hero or heroine takes. But I feel like applying a template allows us to analyze it better. Maybe that's just my teaching perspective, but when I taught, I like to use graphs and charts.
yeah.
Like, this is how you approach a story, and like one of those is the hero's journey. We have covered Marie Murdoch's heroine's journey, and discussed her template, because she was a student of Campbell and realized that there are these heroines that really don't take the hero's journey. Like, they do a step above. Like, there is a deep psychological dig that they're doing, where it's not to build up strength, it's to heal a wound, it's like an intimate story about relationships. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people had problems with Rey, is because Rey did not really go on the Campbell heroine's journey. Or hero's journey. She went on the Maureen Murdoch heroine's journey. And it's all about wanting intimacy and belonging. Like, Rey never says, I want to be a Jedi like my father before me, like Luke said. She goes, I want someone to show me my place in all this. I want belonging. And that's more of a heroine's journey. And if you look at Maureen Murdoch's chart that people use to map her cycle, Rey goes on all of those things. So she really does follow an arc. It's just an arc that people are not familiar with. Like you were saying, it's a different way to tell a story, and it's not wrong. It's just different.
Yeah, and I'm in the middle of reading it right now. Then I think like I'll have kind of hit the big mythology books, like, because it's like The Hero with 1,000 Faces, and then the Maureen Murdoch's book and Christopher Vogler's book, and then this Heroine with 1,001 Faces. So
it's
if
so many books.
Yeah.
So little time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still have so many to read. I'm just like, oh, I don't know if I can ever do it. But yeah.
Audiobooks help me out a lot. So
yeah. I should do that. But yeah, I think her name is Kel Carringer. If I say that wrong, someone just send me a message and you got that wrong. But she also wrote a book about the heroine's journey, and it's a little bit different than Maureen Murdoch's. So again, it's like, it's these, and you see that in college. Like when we went to university and we wrote a literary analysis, there's like millions of people who wrote about the Canterbury Tales.
Yeah.
And they all have a different perspective of what the Canterbury Tales meant, and the journey that they take and stuff. And so like you glean things from Campbell and Murdoch and Geringer and Fry, and like I just it all just helps you. It's, and not even the Reylo community, like different Reylos see Reylo differently, and it means different things to people, but it just is all to help you explore these stories more in depth if you desire to.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a quote, well, I'm not going to quote it exactly, but Joseph Campbell, he says, like, a myth is true for the time it's written in, and I was kind of like, I read the hero's journey earlier this year, like in February, and I'm like, oh, he has some really good thoughts. Some thoughts are outdated, but then I was kind of thinking about what he said, and I was like, I think, like, what he says will always have, like, pieces of truth in it, but, like,
yeah.
I don't think he's the final say, like, that's why we have different, like, people kind of lending their interpretation to mythological themes,
right.
Because mythology is always, like, fluctuating. We're always telling stories. Time will always be different for everyone, and I was like, oh, it doesn't mean, like, one perspective, has to be wrong, but it's like, we just kind of have new views on mythology and mythological storytelling. So
yeah. I mean, no one has. Stories are subjective, and even analysis is subjective. So like, there are different, like I said, there are different perspectives of Reylo. There are some great podcasts out there, like What the Force and Women of the Wills and Lords of the Sith, that are Reylo podcasters, but they have a different take of Reylo than we do. It's just we're applying different methodology to it all.
Yeah.
and deriving meaning. And I to me, they're all legit. It's like, if you use the text and the text supports your analysis, then it's one other way of looking at it, and one other way of making the movie or story experience more meaningful.
Do you know what would be hilarious? Is if in 500 years someone is like writing a thesis on Reylo,
Yes.
And like they have to cite a tweet or something, and maybe they're citing your tweets,
Yeah, there you go.
Be like, why was Reylo so hated?
Yeah.
That would be the analysis. Yeah.
Maybe back in the day when like the King Arthur like cycle was being written, I guess it's a cycle. Like maybe some people are like, Lancelot and Guinevere is toxic. Here's why. It's abusive or something like that. And it's like, and now it's just like a love story, so.
Yeah. Well, and all relationships have some level of toxicity to them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's because we're human, and every human has strengths and weaknesses, and that's the story, is you develop and you mature and you turn away from such toxic behavior, but that's like a step at a time. And I think that's one misunderstanding is most Reylos did not want Rey with Kylo Ren. Most Reylos wanted Rey with Ben Solo, a mature Ben Solo. Like most Reylos will tell you that when they are on Crate and they're having the final Force bond and she shuts the door on him, that was a healthy thing for Rey to do.
Yeah.
You need to get your stuff together before we can be in a relationship. Tonight you sleep on the base, okay?
Yeah.
Call me when you're ready, when Ben Solo is ready to come back. Because that's who she shipped herself off for. She did not ship herself off for Kylo Ren. She went to go and get Ben Solo. And
she also put on a lot of makeup and did her hair all nice. So I'm like,
yeah.
She was, looking for love, I think. So
She definitely was.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you really got into kind of this Reylo story arc kind of after The Last Jedi. Were there certain parts of The Last Jedi that really spoke to you in terms of their relationship and their character building, or was it just kind of, The Last Jedi as a whole?
I became a Reylo when I saw The Force Awakens.
Okay.
I recognize like the gothic romance, kind of Hades and Persephone reference that they did when Rey ate the fruit in the castle in Takodana. Like Persephone eats the pomegranates, and then Hades comes and carries her to the underworld. So I'm like, okay, the bridal carry and the musical theme with the two of them like answering and calling back forth to each other, and it swells and then it like parallels itself with Tchaikovsky's Romeo and Juliet. I'm like, okay, this is more than just he's taking her to interrogate her. They're saying that something more romantic is happening with these two characters. And then, like he takes his mask off, which is like a revealing his face, which is a big deal in Star Wars. You just don't take your mask off for anybody.
Yeah.
So, and he didn't want to kill her. He said, I want to train you. He kept on standing up for her, even Snoke. Like, he's like, she's stronger than the Force, stronger than she even knows. Like, so to me, I was like, they're doing something between these two characters, and they're doing a lot of motifs, and I think they're going to end up together. And so I went into The Last Jedi thinking that, going, okay, well, let's see what this movie does. And then I was like, oh, okay, it is now Jane Eyre in space. It is now Pride and Prejudice in space. I'm ready. I am on this train. I've got to talk about this movie because it's everything that I've ever wanted. I've always been a Star Wars fan since I was a child. But I've also always been a gothic romance fan. I've also, like, Jane Eyre is my favorite book. I love Jane Austen. So just the fact that gothic romance married Star Wars just delighted my soul. I was like, I could not ask for anymore. But one thing I love about The Last Jedi is it's very intimacy based. It's very much about two people who are on opposite sides of the spectrum having to talk and having to share the most hurtful parts of their lives. And I loved all the Force bonds, but the finger touching scene is probably one of the most meaningful scenes I've seen in cinema. Like, to just have those two say such simple but such meaningful expressions to one another. Like, you're not alone, neither are you. You can come back. And then for them to touch fingertips and for that to be such a heightened meaning was really beautiful. It reminds me of there's a scene in the 2000 5 Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley, where Darcy takes her hand and he picks her, he helps her up the carriage. And then there's a shot of his hand where he's flexing it, like just touching her hand just sent electric shocks.
Oh, yeah, the hand flex.
Yeah. And back then, like, you weren't supposed to touch skin on skin. It was very rare. So the fact that he was able to touch her was like, it just was more electric. And we've lost a lot of that these days. Like, things are, you're not in a relationship until you kiss or something like that. Like, people needed more of a literal, where that was more courtly and more Victorian. It was like restraint and romance instead of like a pure, a literal, explanation. It was like something that you see in courtly love books. And yeah, that's why I'm saying it's Pride and Prejudice in space, just because it's one touch can make you fall in love with someone.
Yeah. And I didn't really see the Reylo in The Force Awakens, but I did like see some metas like while we were waiting for The Last Jedi, and was like, maybe they're onto something. And then you saw like the trailer for The Last Jedi. I'm like, it was basically Reylo the trailer, and I was like, wow, okay, like they're really going down this route, and it really reminded me of like Revan Bastila,
Yes.
So like basically the Force bonds. I was like, oh, they're literally doing, like that Force bond. So like I was on board for it, and it is interesting because I think like we're kind of in more of a literal age right now.
Yes.
And so like people are kind of interpreting like stories more as prose, but like stories are kind of more like poetic, and especially Star Wars, it's like a mythic fairy tale, in space. So like it's hard because a lot of people think like one for one, like, Kylo pushed Rey into a tree, and that means like they can't be in a relationship. And I'm like, oh, they're in a war, I think like a tree is like the least of people's problems, and like, I mean, there can be like conversations to have, like, like about abuse and stuff, but I'm like, I think like if anything, like the movies always stress that like Kylo is never aggressive, in comparison like to Rey. Like if you look at like Poe's interrogation scene,
right.
It's like I think everybody forgot, like, I don't know, they're very different,
Well, yeah, and that's why they did that, is there was a contrast. Like Poe is in a dark room and Kylo comes all intimidating, and with Rey, the room was all lit and Kylo was kneeling. Like there is, and he's very gentle. In the book, he says he doesn't want to do this. He just needs the map. And I wish they kept that line out. I wish they kept that line in. I wish he said, in the book, he says, I need the map, and I can get whatever I want. And she knows that because she's been mind probed. So people read that, I can take anything I want, from being like very sexually abusive. Like they hear a rape threat in that. And he's not talking about hurting her physically or violating her. He's talking about, I need the map because we're at war. And that's my mission that my master has given me, is to find the map so I can go and kill Luke Skywalker. That's what he's talking about. And it's the trope. Like you said, it's enemies to lovers. In Force Awakens, they're enemies. It's a war. And that's the context. Like they're fighting a war. But look at how he battles Finn versus how he battles Rey. Like Finn, he just He's ferocious
Spine.
with Finn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he puts his saber through Finn's spine. With her, he's like, he's fighting her not to hurt her. He's fighting her to get her to stop so he can ask her the question. People see him as being weak. And I'm like, he's not weak, guys, because he's not dueling her to win. He's dueling her to get her to come and let him be her teacher. You need a teacher. I can show you the ways of the Force. And by that time, he was dealing from how many wounds? Like the Chewie's blaster, like
Yeah.
So it's like if he wanted to kill her, he could just push her down that cave, down that precipice. Like again, it's enemies to lovers. And it's another theory that Reylos love. I wish I came up with it. I didn't. But it's called reverse Anadala, where basically Reylo is the parallel of Anakin and Padme, but in reverse. Padme met Anakin when he was like a golden fair-haired child. Like he was the promised one. He was the golden boy. And then he grew up, and Sidious twisted his heart to become this monster, to become Vader. And thus it ends in tragedy. With Reylo, Rey meets him as a monster. But Rey's love for him heals him and helps him turn back into a man. So with Padme and Anakin, it's man to beast. With Reylo, it's beast to man, and that's why we call it Beauty and the Beast in space as well. If you look at Disney's Beauty and the Beast, Belle did not change the Beast. The Beast changed for her,
which I think a lot of people miss, and they're like, "Oh, I heard once about what's it called, Stockholm syndrome?"
Yeah. Oh
yeah.
No.
And
no. Yeah, there's a lot of videos on that, but basically, okay, one, it's a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Two,
Right.
like, she did not say, he just didn't kidnap her. It was an exchange. She made the contract, the agreement. I will stay here with my father. He said, do you agree with this? And he said, yes, done. So there's a contract there. And if you look at the stained glass at the very beginning, there is a Latin phrase, and I can't remember what the phrase is. I just know the translation. The translation is, he conquers who conquers himself. So, and that's written right under the beast's stained glass, meaning he won, not won Belle, but he won the story because he conquered the beast within. Where Gaston allowed the beast to overtake himself. The Gaston is the true beast of the story because he wanted to possess Belle, where the beast was like, I love you, but if you need to go to the father, even though it's going to hurt me and I'm going to turn into a beast forever, I love you so much that I'm willing to take that consequence. Yeah. So go. And that's, that there's a heart change. Well, that's what Reylo was supposed to be, was love takes away the poison instead of love being the poison.
Yeah. And I believe the Latin phrase, I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong, but it's Vincent K. Say Vincent. So
thank you.
You can comment below how bad my Latin was. I've been trying to learn for a long time.
That was pretty good Latin, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. I couldn't remember. I was like, it begins with a V. So yeah. I'm just going to use the English translation.
Actually, if I was trying to do it in classical Latin, I think I was supposed to, the V is a W. So we'll just pretend we're doing, I don't know so there's classical Latin and then kind of the Latin they use in churches. So
yep.
I forget what the other one is called. So
whatever Beauty and the Beast creators.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I'll have to consult
Beauty and the Beast
them.
Latin. Yeah.
We're now a Beauty and the Beast podcast, so I'll have to be
Okay.
like, so, and I'll ask them, and I'll be like, so when you're animating this, like, were you using the classical Latin or, you know, the updated Latin? What is that called? And they'll be like, I don't remember that. What are you talking about? And yeah, so it'd be really fun. So
That's the feminine aspect of the story. Like, you look at mythology, the females are healers. Like, they're the ones that heal. And you see that with Belle and the Beast. Like, what is the first thing that she does to kind of start a relationship? And when I say a relationship, I'm talking about a friendship first, because I feel like Belle and the Beast became friends before they became lovers, but she tended his wound. And that's what Rey does. Rey is the healer Jedi. And we saw this, Lou and I saw this at the very beginning. We're like, she's a healer. And this is why. Like, she's a scavenger. She fixes broken things. She doesn't throw things away. She heals them. And I think that's very much like Bastila Shan. Like, Bastila Shan was also a healer Jedi. Like, she healed Revan. And you see that at the very beginning, like in The Force Awakens, Kylo Ren's mask and whole getup looks like Revan.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And Rey's outfit reminds you of Bastila Shan's, and of course she gets the yellow light.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was so interesting watching The Rise of Skywalker, because it was like, I mean, this probably is a bit of a sore, you know, subject, you know, Rise of Skywalker, but before I watched it, I was spoiled. I didn't realize I was spoiled, like, because I'm like, oh yeah, Reddit post is gonna spoil, you know, the biggest saga's ending of all time, and then it's like,
it sure did.
It
sure
did. You know, like, and so even though I knew what was coming when Ben died, like, I cried because I'm like, it's not futile what he did. He saved Rey and he loved her, you know, and like, even though I knew what was going to happen, I like, maybe even because I knew what was going to happen, I'm like, they're just wasting this, you know? Like, I cried, like, you know, like, tears fell down, you know, like, stoically. Like, I wasn't, like, bawling in a theater, but...
Right,
like,
yeah.
I was like, oh, like... It's hard because I feel like... Kind of when I, like, am like, oh, I like Ben Solo, you know? And, like, some guys are just like... Oh, you just think he's hot, you know, and you're fangirling, and it's like, sometimes, like, I get the feeling that, like, some people think, like, if a girl is passionate about something, they just call it fangirling, and it's like, no.
Right,
yeah. I like this character, and I like this dynamic, but, like, I kind of think that Disney, they didn't quite like the response of The Last Jedi because it was a bit different, you know, and... They're like, okay, like, we'll just kind of try to make everyone happy. And by doing that, I think they made no one happy, you know? And I think they're just like, people don't seem to like this Reylo dynamic. So we're just going to have Ben die, you know? Like, and yeah, you know, and that should end this saga really well, you know, and it's like,
right,
sometimes I talk to some people and it's just like, oh, you just like it because it's a young adult trope, you know, like bad boy, good girl, you know, and it's like, no, like, this is really tapping on some ancient patterns that really resonate with people, and I think that having the proper ending, you know, like, it doesn't mean, like, Rey is only a girlfriend or Ben Solo's only a boyfriend. Like, they'll have trials and tribulations, and, like, it doesn't mean, like, a happy ending means, like, they're happy forever, you know? But, like, I think it would have been a better ending to have these people, like, live, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, to me, at the end of Rise of Skywalker, it felt kind of like tragedy for tragedy's sake. But I don't know how you would have wrapped up the story any better. With the length of the story that was being told or trying to be told in the Rise of Skywalker. So yeah, it might have been a little heavy handed with the tragedy, but I personally, when I watched it, I was okay with the way that story arc fell out. But I did really like what we were saying about kind of the inverse parallel to Anakin and Padme, because I definitely can see that now and take a lot out of that. And it kind of fits in with a lot of these ring theory things that Cassie and I have been talking about. So
yeah, we kind of lost you for a second because at first I was like, oh, did she exit the chat because we brought up Rise of Skywalker? Like, did she just kind of like hard quit? It's like, oh, maybe we should have had a safety word. Like, yeah. I don't know.
I'm gone.
Bye.
I'm sorry. My computer has decided to die, and it's like it heard the Rise of Skywalker and decided it's dead now.
Hashtag nope.
That's right. Yeah. I am out of here. Done with this. Yeah. But yeah, we were starting to get into the Rise of Skywalker, and I guess what were kind of your takeaways with kind of the end. You'd mentioned that Rey was a healer, and that was kind of a big kind of cornerstone of her character arc in Rise of Skywalker. And then I guess just how that kind of culminated into eventually Ben sacrificing himself to save her at the end. Did you I guess just kind of what were your general thoughts, I guess, of their story? Is it kind of wrapped up there?
Well, it is reverse Amidala, but because it is Anakin wanted to save Padme, but Ben did what Anakin wouldn't do, which is lay his life down for his Padme. So to me, that's how I can swallow it. Do I like it? Absolutely not. Rise of Skywalker, I actually went through grief about it. Like I felt dead during the holidays of 2019. Like I would have nightmares of my friends being buried in quicksand. It sounds dramatic, but I would keep on telling myself it's just a movie. But at the same time, like that was my childhood, and seeing and knowing that the hope of the Skywalkers, Ben Solo, is dead, just really hurt me, especially knowing what kind of life he had, that he was manipulated and abused in the womb and heard voices throughout his childhood, and like he never had a chance. So I would have loved for them to have given that chance. Like if Revan could have killed, like he killed millions, he committed genocide, he did more than Kylo Ren ever did. But he was allowed to live and have a child with Bastila. So I wish the same mercy would be given to Ben Solo. The hope that I have is that he is the archetype of the Christ figure. He laid down his life for the person that he loved. And if he follows that archetype, the chains of death don't weigh him down. He will resurrect. And to me, that doesn't belittle his sacrifice. It shows the power of that sacrifice, that the power of the dyad, the power of the love between them will defeat death itself. Like there's a lot of new material from the Secrets of the Sith that talk about how the dyad is unbreakable. It has unlimited power, and it's supposed to usher in a new era. Well, the dyad was never allowed to do that. And if the Force waited 1,000 years to, unseen for generations, then I think that the Force can resurrect Ben. Like, we don't know the power of the dyad, and if it's the power of life itself, then I mean, if the door is open, it's just if Lucasfilm has it planned or not. And to me, it just makes commercial monetary sense. Like, you know, that's my hope. My hope is he's going to come back.
Hashtag save Ben Solo, you know?
Exactly.
And I don't know, The Rise of Skywalker was such a weird emotional whiplash because I was like, Ben died.
Yeah.
But then I was like, but a yellow lightsaber happened, and they mentioned a dyad and seen for generations, thus making KOTOR canon. So, like, but I'm like, but Ben died, you know? Like,
yeah. Well, you know that there are some aspects of The Rise of Skywalker that I do like.
Yeah.
Like, I love the fact that Rey is a healer, and I like that. I love the scene between Han and Ben.
Oh, everyone loves that scene. Like,
yeah, I just, I don't know. To me, I feel like they should have redeemed him at the very beginning, and people could have seen Ben Solo and had him for a couple of hours more. Because I think even the haters, like, because Ben is basically Han Solo with the powers of Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah. I mean, in my review, you know, for Rise of Skywalker, I was like, he's like, Ben Solo is if Han Solo and Anakin had a baby, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Yeah. He has the heart of Han Solo with that mighty Skywalker blood. I mean, that's right out of The Last Jedi. I'm just cutting and pasting the two sentences together.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I just, my friend Jared says the Rise of Skywalker made a lot of interesting choices, and I guess that's how diplomatic I can say. Like,
choices were made, and you know,
choices were made,
and
I wasn't but there's always hope that he can come back.
Yeah.
You know, mythology, people resurrect in mythology all the time.
Yeah. And I'd be open to seeing more stories, and it would be cool. And I mean, even in the Lego holiday special, I was like, wow, she's able to grieve Ben Solo there, you know? And like, probably even more than she did in The Rise of Skywalker for some reason. But
I think they didn't do that because they knew, I think they didn't want people devastated. And if to see Rey devastated, like, to sink in, they basically killed her soulmate.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if the audience was allowed to grieve that, and Rey was like, how, the heroine didn't get what she wanted, you know? So again, it's this, like, are we listening to what we do to the heroines in the story? Leia didn't get what she wanted. Yeah, Ben came back, but Leia laid her life down to save her son, and her son died anyway.
Yeah.
And I just wish people like that would just sink in. Like, what are we doing to the female characters, and why aren't they getting what they want? Why are they not having a happily ever after?
Yeah.
And don't female stories deserve a happily ever after too? Like, why did Rey end up? That's another problem I have. Like, I know she's on the Falcons around the other corner. I just would have loved her to at least be with her friends, you know, and BB-8 looking at the binary sunset, like, here's her new family or something.
Yeah.
I just wish she had the group shot that Luke had, or, you know, the Owen and Beru had each other, and, you know, they were like embracing each other and embracing baby Luke, and that was the last shot there.
Yeah.
So it always ends up with hope and family, and I just felt like Rey's story ended up in isolation.
Yeah.
And a theme to end on, and the isolation that was
Yeah.
COVID, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like when I say like I want happy endings, it doesn't mean like I want everything to be perfect and that there won't be like problems for, future stories and
Right.
characters to have. But I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
think like happy endings, like it doesn't mean like every character has to have a happy ending. Good people always get the things they want. Bad people always die. Like I'm okay with some ambiguity, but I think like we just needed some more connectivity and like I
Yeah.
don't know, hope, out of the Rise of Skywalker. And I hope like future stories, like I don't know, kind of like tell the story they want to tell, and don't feel compelled to like they have to change certain things so like a certain segment of like Reddit will like it.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
that's what I kind of want. So we kind of touched on some of the parallels, like with Reylo and Ravastila, and we kind of have touched on it a bit. But what are some of the biggest like parallels that you see that you notice as like the number one Reylo podcast in the world?
We're not number. I wish we were number one, but
The ultimate
we're
Reylo
not.
podcast in the world.
That's very sweet of you. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm overtaken by the compliment, but uh, there's a number of parallels. There's the aesthetics of the two. Like if you look at the way the mask, and that's right out of the gate of the Force Awakens, the way that the two are styled, and Kylo's mask looks more like Revan's mask than Vader's mask. um the fact that they're two very powerful Force users, and they have a bond, the fact that um they both share each other's feelings with each other. They're both very intimate. Bastila shares with Revan her struggles of darkness within her, and then she heals Revan physically, and you see that with Rey and Ben. You see the intimacy that is growing between them through discussion. Um, you you have the prodigal son return. Like that's one way that the Knights of the Old Republic game ends, is they call Revan the prodigal son or the prodigal knight. Well, that's Ben. Ben was the prodigal son, the prodigal knight who returned home. Revan was also in sense reborn and was allowed to live his life over again. I mean, of course, there's that whole, you can have that debate of whether the Jedi were evil for
They
doing
were
that
up to some shady stuff,
Yeah.
they were, but just he was reborn and he was allowed to make another choice. Well, Ben was also, reborn with the touch of the a healer Jedi. So, I think Bastila's parents were also scavengers, because Bastila's father kept on going on trips and things, and her mother was afraid of the journey and everything. So you have that scavenger parallel.
Yeah.
You have their ages. Bastila is around 19, 20 years old. So is Rey. Kylo is in his 30s. Revan, I think, is either 35 or 40, around that age area. So you have that age gap too. There's just a lot of things. I mean, if you listen to the bond, especially Jedi Kyle, I think is his name. I'm sorry, it's late, and I'm very tired.
It's okay.
But if you look at his explanation of what Force bonds are and how like a bond broken can be a wound in the Force, then that's right. Oh, there's that Jolie Bendu quote about how the light reawakened him, which to me sounds very Reylo-esque, that the light awakened Ben Solo, because that's the whole Force Awakens is Rey is that light that has awoken, and Kylo feels that. So I to me it took Lou and I a couple of podcasts to dive into all the similarities, but there is definitely similarities between the two. I think one is just written from a male perspective, like how a male would write the story, and the other one is like from a femme gaze, because Revan and Kylo I think are very similar, but Revan is like the ultimate fantasy, power fantasy. Like he's stoic and he's wise and he's a tactician, and he's also a scholar and a philosopher and like a powerful Force user. And that's not belittling to him. Like I love Revan. Yeah. I'm a Revan fan girl. I've played KOTOR several times. I have his bobblehead.
Same here. Yeah.
But then you have Ben, who is the same, but he's emotional. He shows more of his wounds. And again, that's kind of like the female gaze of, I want to heal this person because this person is injured. Well, so is Revan, but he doesn't show it where Ben shows it. So it's how a female would want to see Revan. And when I say female, I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking about storytelling utility. Does that make any sense? So like heroes, male characters can go on heroes' quest. They also can go on heroines' quest. It's like, what utility, what template are you following? And that's the same thing with male gaze and female gaze. Like Ryan Johnson, who is a man and identifies as a man, wrote a femme gaze story, like told it through the heroine's journey and told it through like a female perspective of like more about intimacy and belonging and relationships than about like more action sequences. And that was a big criticism of The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
So it's that. It's like Reylo was more about the internal journey than Revan Bastila was.
Yeah.
But it still has the same story. It's still about a bond that saves both people and saves the galaxy at large.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's always rumors of an Old Republic, like something coming along, which, like, if you listen to our pilot, like, that's the reason why we created this podcast, is like, because we're like, what if it, like, we love Knights of the Old Republic, what if it comes on screen?
Yeah.
And what I would love with Revan and Bastila, if they are to be on screen, and they decided to go, like, like, I guess what was the old canon route, like, I would love to just see that relationship develop, because it would kind of progress. Like, we had a Ring Theory episode where we kind of talk about, like, Revan and Bastila's whole history, where, like, Revan began as a Sith Lord, and then, like, he was injured, Bastila saved him, and then, like, later down the line, Revan is a Sith, and Revan saves her, so it's like, they're all kind of, like, they kind of go through, like, I think, like, the whole, experience you can have in Star Wars, like, they help each other out at different times and become better, and, like, their bond, I I think like we talk about the thesis of KOTOR, and like KOTOR 1, I think like the thesis is like people can become better. Like all of the companions have their problems, but like people can become better. And I think like in this day and age, like I think like we might need, you know, more hope and like more empathy, you know, like allow people to change and become better. And I think to kind of see that like reflected in a story, I think could really affect some change rather than just being like, oh, if you're evil, redemption equals death, you know, like allow people to be reborn, you know, like learn from mistakes and not have to be killed, you know?
Allow them to make restitution. Like that's the beautiful thing about Revan is he was allowed to make restitution. He was allowed to make a second chance and really help the galaxy out. And just think of what Ben could do to help the galaxy. He can do more good alive than he can dead.
Yeah.
I mean, he has the mighty Skywalker blood, and he also has the power of the Dyad. Like, what can the Dyad really do? Like, that's something that really has not been shown, and it has to be more than just growing flesh on Sidious's bony fingers. I mean, like, it's got to be more than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it, and I you know, I did a collaboration with 100% Star Wars. You probably are familiar with Luke's channel.
Yeah.
And Luke and I started talking, and we're like, wonder if Bastila, Sean, and Revan are a dyad in the Force. And because Sidious says it's been unseen in generations, I wonder if Revan and Bastila are like the template of it, and that's why there's so many parallels between those two.
Yeah.
So maybe the Old Republic movie or story is going to add that to the canon, that Revan and Bastila are another dyad, and this is what a dyad looks like. I don't know. That's just another possibility.
Well, we're 100% down for that, you know, like it's just such an epic, you know, romantic love story. Like what I think I've said this before. George Lucas, I love how he just always kind of created like not contemporary romances. Like with Han and Leia, it was kind of more like the 30s, like, you know, like screwball comedy formula. And then with Anakin and Padme, it was kind of more like the courtly love tradition, you know? And like, he just was so earnest, you know? Like, it's just so different from like what love stories are nowadays. Like, now I feel like love stories, if they're there, they're just so subtle, you know? They're like, it's whatever. Or like, they're just like, this is a girl, she has 2 lines, romance, you know? Like, at the end, like, it won't make sense, but like, whatever, you know? And I just love that George Lucas loved love, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's also like this idea that it's bad for girls to be in a relationship or want a relationship. Like, how dare you want a relationship? Or like, to me, that's the beautiful thing about The Last Jedi, is it shows that, like, look at the harmony when we work together. Like, we're meant to work together. And when Ben and Rey came together, they were able to do the impossible. So like, I wish filmmakers would know that it doesn't take power away from females if the female heroine can receive help.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't need it. We're not saying that she needs it, but it's also empowering for females to have friends and like a dyad to help them. You know, it's also empowering to have a heroine get what she wanted.
Yeah.
Or Leia to get what she wanted. Like, that's part of empowerment, is wish fulfilling.
Yeah.
So yeah,
friendship stories, love stories, like, they're all good. They kind of like help make a whole person, I think. maybe sometimes
Yeah.
people get turned off of maybe Campbellian or mythic storytelling thought, like, because they think, like, if they hear hero or heroine, you know, or like the hero's journey, you know, they kind of think it's just like a gender binary. Like, maybe in the future, like,
Yeah.
some new terms will come about, you know, but like, I think, like, you know, like, everyone, like, characters, people, like, we all kind of have, like, you know, like, masculine and feminine, you know, parts of us, I think,
Right.
like, and
Mm-hmm.
like, we all go through different journeys, and like, there's kind of like the physical, you know, we have to do, like, that's kind of more about the outward, and then we all have to kind of reflect and do the inside work too, you know, and develop empathy. And yeah, so it'll be interesting to see, like, if future Star Wars stories kind of like incorporate, you know, kind of more the mythic, kind of poetic kind of side of things.
Yeah.
You know?
I hope so. And yeah, it is hard to say heroines and heroes and male gaze and female gaze because it sounds so limiting. And I don't mean to eliminate or be I'm just using the utility of the word and not the gender of the word. Like,
Yeah.
if that makes
Mhm.
any sense.
Yeah.
So it's again, it's the evolution of analysis, like you said. Maybe someday
Yeah.
people will know how to use and explain better
Yeah.
in ways that we don't have right now.
Yeah.
But all I want is a balance. Like that's it just needs to be a balance. Like Tolkien, I love the balance that he had because he was able to get dark and gritty, but he also had like the ethereal and the beautiful with the elves. So, you know, you had a balance. You had it, you know, there was grief and despair, but there also was elation and a happy ending in the Lord of the Rings. And I think Star Wars and fantasy can be that way. Like happily ever after doesn't have to be like you said, perfection. To me, happily ever after just means that the arc at that moment has ended in a satisfactory way.
Yeah.
Like you leave satisfactory knowing that another cycle will come about and the characters will have to go on another journey with more conflict and more pain and more triumph, and it never ends. Like Campbell said that with us, like we go on heroes journeys and we go through several cycles through our life.
Yeah. That's what I like about Campbell. It's not that I see myself, like, I'm not a megalomaniac, whatever the word is, you know, like, I don't see myself as, like, the great person, like, the world revolves around me, but, like, we all have trials and tribulations in life. It doesn't mean, like, if I go through struggles, this, and this is, like, guaranteed to happen, but it means, like, we kind of always have to, like, we always adapt and adapt to different, like, stimuli in our lives, and like that's what I think like Campbell was trying to get at, and like the stories we tell and like have stayed with us, like they have those patterns to teach us how to live, you know, and that's what I love.
Exactly.
You know? And
yeah.
I mean, if Revan and Bastila are adapted, you know, I just hope that the overall message is hope, you know, and like it would just be cool to see another dyad. Like, what are the similarities? What are the differences? You know, because I think like the stories there, the archetypes are there. You know, like it's a great setting. You know, and I just want love. You know, and hope. You know, wonder.
Yeah. That's one thing I would love for the new game to have. I have to mention this is not my. I had another conversation with another KOTOR fan, but she expressed the desire that I was like, yeah, I feel that way too. Like we wish that in this new game, there was more intimacy and romance that can be heightened between Bastila and Revan.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
you know, in nonverbal communications, which the original game was very limited in what they could do with nonverbals and gestures,
Yeah.
and where there's more romance than just banter. Because
Yeah.
they take
Right,
a very
sure, yeah.
Han Leia approach to it, which I love that, but I think it'd be also nice to
Not have them like have
have
the first kiss, you know, like on the Ebon Hawk. I mean, you know, like
yeah
because I mean we've kind of talked about that in our podcast. Like, I love the beats of Revan and Bastila, but some of the dialogue, I'm like, we can do better, you know.
yes
And maybe Revan and
Yeah.
Bastila, they don't need quite like a 19-year age gap, you know. Like, maybe we can make it
yeah
a little smaller. Like, I'm okay with an age gap, but maybe not, you know, almost 20 years, you know. So
like, whew. And I pray they bring back Nitras, or because I know we're getting off or I'm getting off the subject, but KOTOR 2 is one of my absolute favorite games. Like, I've never cried. I cried in Mitra's game, and I really think that is a story that I hope Star Wars brings back into canon, because it's so
Mhm.
unique and powerful.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a heroine's journey, kind of like through purgatory. Kreia, how do you even talk about Kreia? My fan cast for Kreia, Catherine O'Hara, or she can play Yaddle, or maybe both, you know. Like, but yeah, like I would love to have Mitra come back. It's such a great story, you know. KOTOR 2, like KOTOR and KOTOR 2 are so different, but like they're so rich, you know, and like so different. And whenever we get to season 2 of our podcast, I kind of have no idea how we're going to do it. We joke that we're going to do Kreia the musical on ice, you know?
Yeah.
But
Do it as an ice capade.
yeah, so.
And then we lose favor with Kreia, and that's the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. She can say something like, "Then you have learned nothing."
Yeah.
Apathy is
right.
death, and then it like turns into a whole number. And Disney should, you know, like, we have so many good ideas that are commercially viable, you know? So, yeah.
I
right.
am here for it. I am here for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, one thing I mean, like, I kind of wanted to ask you is your quote, like, read mythically, love epically?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I that actually, Loki inspired that. Because I was saying to Lou, I was like, I just wish people would think mythically, and then love epically came after that. But it was born out of, I just wish people would look at it more metaphorically than literally. Like, look at the meaning of it.
Yeah.
Instead of like the well, he killed people and thus it should end in death. Okay, so yes, I understand in the real world we have this discussion, but in fairy tales things can go differently to inspire reality. And so let's think mythically, like, think what it means more. Like, for example, people will look at Kylo and be very hard on him when I say he's the adolescent boy. And they're like, well, how can he be the adolescent boy? He's 30 years old. And I said, well, developmentally he is. And Ryan Johnson said he was the anger of adolescence. So mythically speaking, he is the adolescent boy.
Yeah.
So think mythically, not literally.
Yeah.
Because then you get more from the story.
I just think it's a great, I don't know, I kind of consider it like the tagline of your podcast, kind of like your thesis statement, if you will. And like
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I'll have to tell Lou that. I'm like, Can we just get rid of two women analyzing, like, oh, that's much better to just say think mythically, love epically.
Yeah. So where can our listeners find you and Lou, like, to consume, like, your content?
Our channel is on YouTube. Unfortunately, we're not on like podcast, like iTunes and Podbean and things of that nature. We're working on it, but we're not there yet. We're just on YouTube for now. Just type in Girls with Sabers and you'll see it. But we're also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr under Girls with Sabers. We also have a Patreon and merchandise at tpublic.com. So if you want to come and swing by and say, hey, like I said, community is extremely important and we want to hear from you and we love discussion. So feel free to drop us a note sometime.
Yeah, and you guys are always welcome back at the Old Republic podcast. And if you need KOTOR, experts, like, we're always here.
Yes. I so want you to come and talk to me about Mitra.
Yeah, we love it.
Because I'm all alone in my Mitra fandom. I'm like, I need someone to talk about Mitra. So, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And it is a joy to find and talk to people about KOTOR because it is a Star Wars unto itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I want to apologize on behalf of Lou. She really wanted to be here, but life happened, the struggles happened, and they overtook her. But I know the story is important to her too, and she was looking forward to it. So again, thank you, and hopefully we can have you on soon and wax poetic about KOTOR. Probably talk about some Kreia conundrums.
Oh yeah, we love Kreia.
Yeah,
so
we love Kreia. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Even though she doesn't always love us back.
Yeah.
Oh no, she doesn't love us at all.
Yeah. All right. And that was today's episode. So take care and may the Force be with you.